Hello, I'm Michael Verney and welcome along to the Indo GAA podcast with thanks to AIB. AIB is at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county, and in 2025 they're celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships. With this year's championship shaping up to be one of the most competitive in years, AIB is more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. Check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more. Hello and welcome to Indo GAA with me, Michael Verney, and it's a very special Indo GAA podcast. Mullane is back and Ned is back. Boys, what's the crack? The boys are back in town.
Boys are Vern.
What's the story, Mull? All good?
Yeah, all good.
Good
weekend.
Good weekend for your boys. Jesus Christ, great weekend. Mull, we might as well get straight into it. The crack with the bus. Jeez, this is a real throwback. The bus not showing up and the boys been convoyed from Waterford to Wexford Park. Like, it's not something you hear in 2025.
No, it ain't, but how easy it can happen. Look, you hear stories going around, the bus wasn't booked and the bus broke down. But look, the main thing is that they won the match. I mean, these things happen. I mean, I've been there before, where 2004 we're going up to play Kilkenny in the All Ireland semi-final. We had a flight booked to go up to Dublin.
Oh yeah,
And the weather went against us, and the flight got cancelled from Waterford up to Dublin. And we had to go with other arrangements. We had to get the train, and it was lastminute.com. And
is it panic stations, Mull? Is it panic stations? And it's very important that you don't allow that panic to kind of kick in, but it can kick in.
It can kick in, and if you allow it to kick in, and you know, it can affect some lads. Others, then it just kind of goes. You know, it can go over their heads, and it's a testament to those young lads, because you have to remember some of these lads are 15, 16, 17 years of age. They're only kids, and it's a testament to the management that they didn't allow it. Affect the players. Now, luckily enough, they were in the carpool, and it was a short journey down to Wexford town, and it's 45, 50 minutes away. And you were probably want to go, with the minor crowds in contrast to a senior crowd. If that was a senior match,
yeah.
I mean, and you're driving into a crowd of 15, 20,000 people or 40,000 people, you're in serious bother. But the fact it was a minor match, and they were able to get in around the ground freely, they weren't coming in bits and bobs. It didn't really affect them that much, and. So it only becomes an issue when you lose, and thankfully they were able to laugh it off. And in the afternoon match, after getting a very, very good win against a very good Kilkenny team, and they're probably laughing now, saying, geez, we may drive to the final rather than getting a bus. And well, no, look, I probably an awful lot of negativity going around. And look, we don't need any more negativity, being thrown upon us, with the county board. I think the county board are really doing a very, very good job. And I'd actually applaud the county board, because, from 2-3 years out, we've probably looked at this group of young lads coming through. And to be fair to the county board, they put a very, very good management team in place, realising that we had a good crop coming through. And even I go back to 2 years ago when the Féile, I'm actually going to the Féile this weekend with our Camogie team, but Féile 2 years ago, there was the four city teams, Déise, Roemore, Mount Sion and Ballygunner. We're the four teams in the semi-finals, and there wasn't a puck of a ball between either of the four teams. And I remember even 2 years ago, going to that Féile semi-finals and the Féile final, and looking at the four teams, realising that, Jeannie, that there could be a strong possibility that they could push on.
Fairly sure you said it on a podcast, Mull, about 2 years ago, to be honest with you.
Yeah, 2 years ago, because I was looking at the four teams, and out of the four teams, each team had between 3 to 5 really, really good, exciting players. And it's come to fruition now, and you sprinkle in all the other clubs then coming behind it, and yeah, I'd be very. It's after giving us a real injection of hope going forward for the future, and our 15s are now obviously when you have a good team, you need to back it up with another team and another team, and thankfully. I think our 15s are pretty decent as well. So it all bodes well for the future, and yeah, some really exciting talent. And look, yeah, young Spain. I mean, lads, he looks
Awfully blood in him, Mull. Good
awfully blood in him. Yeah, awfully blood in him. But he looks a really. And look, I'm not gonna just pinpoint one because, I mean, you could name any one of the 15, and even a special mention. I looked at the program, the extended panel. I mean, sometimes you always home in on the 15 or the lads in the panel, and sometimes what gets lost in it is the players who are outside of the 24, and they're just as important as the lad that is in between 1 to 15, or the lad that's between 16 to 24. But yeah, no, it was a really good, exciting game, and I suppose two great games. The game Sunday was a fantastic match as well. And can I just say one thing, lads? And Eddie, you can come in as well. We would be lost, and I mean lost, without TG4.
Yeah.
We would be lost, lads.
TG Catter, Mullane. We'd have angry emails coming in about this.
Sorry, TG Catter, and I've heard Nisha, banging the drum that, that they deserve a piece of the pie, and lads, for what they've given the GAA. And what they've given the GAA as a whole in exposure and games promotion the last 20 years, I think the time has come now where we're crying out for games to be thrown on the telly, and I think they deserve a piece of the pie, because what they served up there both Sunday and Saturday evening was just unbelievable.
But like on that even too, like and they've been absolutely brilliant. Am I right in saying? And I suppose I find just the last year or two, everything kind of happens nice and discreetly and nice and quietly. Like you kind of nearly because of the condensed season, we're getting very little build up, and the media probably feel that more than anyone. You have a very narrow window, but I think it lends itself too to. Has GAA Plus just kind of taken an awful lot of matches this year? And like, was it last weekend? Am I right in saying for the Leinster semi-final or something like that, or there was no match shown, or there Saturday evening the Leinster match was shown by RTE, and as a result there was no other. The matches, a lot of the big matches then have been on GAA Plus. So you're like, are they more behind the paywall than ever, or am I?
It does seem like that.
Way.
Yeah, it does seem like that. Like Saturday, we handed over Saturday.
Yeah,
any GAA was on GAA Plus. There was nothing on terrestrial television, which was, I would have said Saturday was one of the most exciting days in the football calendar in a hell of a long time. And I'm not being smart, lads, and people will say, oh, if you want to watch them, you'll go to GAA Plus and whatever. But I'm just thinking of the likes of my parents and the likes of other people. If a game is not on telly, it's not happening in their world. Do you know what I mean? If it's not on TG Cat, or if it's not on RT, it's not happening. They don't know how to go and do this or go and set that up. Do you know what I mean? So I just think we're really, really missing a trick. And I would agree with Mull. I think TG Cat made a play for, it was one of the smaller packages. It was like a handful of games. I think it might have been 6 games, but they were obviously, they didn't get that package, and that package went to the GAA Plus as a result. But it's just, every game seems to be on GAA Plus from what I can see.
Yeah,
the vast majority
of big games have been.
Yeah. Ned, just coming back to something Mull was saying there.
But going back to your parents, Verney, there was, I don't know if you've seen it, there was one video going around of a lady, a lady going around. I think she must have been the grandmother, or her grandchild must have taken the video of her watching the Cork Limerick game, and she's effing and blinding, and she's roaring and shouting, and that's what the GAA is all about, lads. That's what the GAA was born on, like, those type of characters. And I think we really, really, really need to get back to that. And it's that generation that are missing out by putting the games behind the paywall, like, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
we're
agree with that.
excluding people from our national games, lads. That's the bottom line. And we've talked about this long and hard, and there's been debates, and you have lads coming back with different. Oh, this is the way. We're just Saturday evening, lads. For and then we're early in the year as well. I know the calendar year. We won't get into that today because we're just banging that drum constant like this.
But Ned, just all the games that have been missed, we're nearly over. Like, the season is nearly over.
Well,
you know what I mean?
there's five senior hurling matches left. There's your 2 matches this weekend. After Saturday evening, there's 4 teams left in the championship on the 21st of June. So again, and I know that's an argument that's going to, you have some people saying you hear a very mixed, and I get it from a club like, let's say, a club. I don't see any club championships being finished that early. I don't see where the amount of it's gained back. Yeah, if you're unfortunate enough to be finished early in the championship, you have a grand summer there if you're an inter-county fella. But the reality is, we're playing. I go back to last year, and then we've. Look, you hate to be given out about because the games have been excellent this year. But look, last year the weather was a washout. So if I'm an inter-county player, and I get the calendar year is structured, it's grand, you know where you are. But there's no appeal for me, straight up, lads. I'd have no appeal. I'd have no interest in going back in training through November, December, January, February, March, the worst time of the year to be hurling, and then you're finished the end of May, first week in June, and what'll I do? Astro might go off to America for summer, which is grand in itself if you want to do that. But you're looking at it saying the best time of year for hurling matches and football matches and Gaelic games is through the summer months, the holiday months, June, July, August. And, I just think it definitely needs to be looked at because it seems to be just so condensed. And look, rant over.
Yeah.
But Eddie, you know what? We need to keep banging the drum. We need to keep banging the drum. And people say, oh, here's this lad going again. There's 2 things I'm consistent on, and people can knock me for all they like, is that we need to be putting more games out on free-to-air TV and the ticket price. And I don't care if people come in and say, knock me for all I want. I've been consistent on that. And if we don't continue to speak up on it, it's, they're just going to keep putting more games behind the paywall. We're going to have no games on free-to-air TV. And, what really upsets me or really disappoints me is that there's not enough people out there that are willing to speak up about this.
No, there's not.
They don't want to ruffle too many feathers. They're happy to say, oh, I'll leave that to somebody else and leave them deal with it. I'm not going to ruffle any feathers. But you know what? We need more people speaking up about it, and we need the clubs to take back a bit of control and say, hey, you know what, enough is enough. We need to relook at this again going forward into the future.
I think, Mull, just the last point on this, I think because it's no longer GAA Go and it's no longer a partnership between the GAA and RTE, I think it's almost like they feel like they're immune to criticism. Yeah. And that they're immune to, like, there's so many disgruntled people, and they're out there, because I did a piece for the paper last week, and the amount of feedback I got over it, just thanks for saying what we all think or whatever it is, and it's there, and I think you have to keep banging the drum. I know you could be browbeaten after a while, and you're nearly sick of saying it, but if it's the right thing, I think you need to keep banging the drum.
And I think we're going toe to toe with a lot of the big sporting events, which we weren't before. We had our, you had your up weeks and down weeks, like, and again, I say it, look, it's not the most, but like the All-Ireland final is the same weekend as the British Open, which is a strong enough event, and you'd watch it. But like, we shouldn't be clashing with those. We're if we're talking about, and you hear them saying this, oh, we're international, overseas, and it's a word they love looking at the All-Ireland final. I guarantee you're straight away taking out people that they'll watch the British Open. They're not going to watch the All-Ireland final. Like, but I just think everything we seem to do, all the big weekends, they're clashing now with other sports. Like, we weren't competing with, generally, a lot of the time, we weren't competing with the big rugby matches. And I'll sit down and I'll happily watch Leinster or watch a Munster match. But if you have a choice, you'll watch the hurling or the football, because the football has become brilliant to watch this year. And like you said, Michael, that was the big thing. The weekend just gone was arguably one of the greatest weekends in football in a long, long time. In many's a year, there was so much jeopardy and heaven and hell involved, and we didn't really get to soak it all in and enjoy it as much as we'd like.
Yeah, even.
But what makes me laugh? The government got involved last year. And we're the government this year. You know what I mean? Oh, by the way, there's an election on the horizon next year. Oh, we better pipe up with it. So where's the government now? The government have gone even quiet on it. So that's what goes back to it. Like, why can't TG4 have a piece of the pie and say, there you go, there's 20 games. Go out and show. Go out and do what we believe in that you can do. And give the nation what they want.
And just the last one on it, GA Plus is a streaming service. At the end of the day, the streams break down from time to time, as they did over the weekend. If that's on terrestrial television, it does not happen. It's on TV. It's there throughout the country and in other countries as well. And there's no issue with streaming.
Come here, Mixer. Do the GA exclusively own that?
GA Plus.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's no possibility of any individual benefiting from.
No.
It's the organisation. Well, that's okay.
Yeah. And to a point. Yeah. Eddie, just quickly, and I was going to ask you there. Mull was saying about the Waterford boys and their difficulties getting to the game. I'm wondering, even from your own career, club, county, or otherwise, any good old yarns or times that it was difficult to get to a game. And I'm only thinking as well, with your day job. As a Garda, obviously, did you ever have to call in a favour for an old escort or something like that when you were police escort, when you were struggling to get somewhere or something, you were behind the 8 ball a small bit?
No, thankfully we didn't, and it's grand. I just, from a side note, we used to enjoy the early days when you'd be getting, you request a Garda escort and watching them in action, like it was mad, getting you through the town, and there was a great little buzz associated with that. I think we used to be camped in the Crown Plaza and you get the escort in, and it was just brilliant. It was part of the kind of bit of a giddy up and go, like coming into the match, that it was kind of right, we're on the stretch now. There was less talk on the bus, and then we're kind of going, geez, look at the speed the boys passed or whatever. It was all part of the excitement. But yeah, once or twice, Mick, just on that, I think, I remember even it wasn't so much on the bus more so, but definitely, we went up to Thurles in 2004. I think it was a Sunday evening match in maybe the June bank holiday. I'm not sure. We're playing Galway in a quarter-final, and the match got pushed back. Jesus, I think it was pushed back a half an hour, and we were in the dressing room. We were kind of going through, you're just landing in, and I was a stickler for my timings. Like, I know where I was going to be doing or what time I need to start stretching and that. And I remember that day someone came in and just announced, and just we're getting ready. We're kind of half togged out, and someone says the match has been put back 40 minutes or half an hour or whatever. And I remember kind of going, oh shit, and I was starting to go, oh geez, so straight away the sums were being done in the head, right now I need to change my time or whatever. You're going, Jesus. And next thing, I just remember Noel Hickey was close to me that evening. We were like, Cody had built this up, like we had been beaten by Galway in 2001, and the first time we got a bite back at him was 2004, and Cody was building this up nicely. And I remember Hickey just sat there, just calmness personified, and he just goes, I have no problem waiting a bit longer for these boys. And I just kind of went, I said, there's no getting away from it. And I went, deadly, come on, Hick, just bang on cue. And that kind of relaxed me a little bit. We went away and we just came back and refocused. But there was another episode, and I can't think of the year, and it was like, when you texted me last night, we were going to an All-Ireland semi-final, I think, and we were going, or a final, I'm not sure which year it was, and we were heading, but the bus driver decided he plotted a new route where we were going to avoid Carlow or somewhere, and we ended up behind a tractor and trailer drawing corn on some back road. And I'm not messing, he all but shoved the tractor and trailer off the road in front of us, and we were all laughing, and he was honking the horn and beeping at your man to get out of the way because he knew he was on the clock. So like, it's funny, but on that, okay, the young lads, maybe they hadn't the experience. If that was an adult team, they might have got upset by that. But it's just, it can be upsetting, the normal routine of things, because now, Jesus, timings is everything. But just a quick one on that. Am I right in saying that going back, not the last World Cup of the rugby, but the previous one when Eddie Jones was over England, did he throw the day that they absolutely spanked Ireland in a warm-up match in the lead into that tournament, and he had the bus deliberately late to just put the players to I think I heard him in an interview afterwards that he wanted to always present these scenarios to put the lads thinking. And one of them was that day he had it deliberately planned that the bus would arrive 10 minutes late to the hotel to collect him, just that they wouldn't get upset by it and rattled by it. And you're kind of going, geez, they went along and absolutely pulverised Ireland, in Twickenham and put our confidence on the floor going into that World Cup. So
imagine the conversation with the bus driver. Arrived 15 minutes late, mate.
and Eddie Jones, the way he's a real strong character. He's like, listen, mate, do as you're told.
Yeah. No, it's good. Yeah. It kind of preparing for all eventualities almost, you know what I mean? And it's good to put, when you get the opportunity like that, to put players out of their comfort zones and make them think and make them adapt. Some will take it in their stride, like Noel Hickey, cool as a breeze, and then others will be like maybe flying around, buzzing around, and they'll expend energy. And the last thing you want is to, when you get that kind of a cold sweat almost, when you're like thinking too much or something before a game, and you've expended energy before you start, and you go out and you're flat. That's the last thing you want. Mull, logistics is always the thing you say. Why didn't Waterford win an All-Ireland? Logistics. Talk to me a bit more about some of your logistical issues.
Well, look, it most certainly didn't help. If the All-Ireland series was in hurlers, I think we may have pushed on and won an All-Ireland. Had a better chance, but we just couldn't get it right, because even Waterford to Dublin back then before the motorway was Waterford to Dublin was nearly a 3-hour spin, and all back roads up through Mulnavat, Ballyhale, Thomastown. So we just couldn't get the logistics right. Even staying up the night before, I think in the semi-final, I think one player, I think it could have been Brian Flannery or someone. I think he was in with Seamus. I think Seamus was snoring all night. I think Brian. It could have been Flannery. I'm not too sure whether it was Flannery. I think it was Flannery or one of the lads. He ended up sleeping in the bath. Small stuff like that.
Stop, Mull. He slept in the bath before an All-Ireland semi-final.
Before an All-Ireland semi-final, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it could have been Flannery, Brian Flannery. But I think most certainly it was definitely one of the players. Even speaking of card escorts, I remember 2006. I think Tony woke up that morning. And before the All-Ireland semi-final that morning, and his back was all putter, his neck couldn't move his neck, and we had to get John Deneen up. John Deneen, the chiropractor. Now I go to join John twice a year, brilliant chiropractor, and he would have been in with us. But we had to get a guard escort. John, would you believe John was actually down on a breakaway down in Cork the same weekend of the All-Ireland semi-final, and we had to. So John got the phone call. I think it was from Skin Ryan at the time. Could he get up to Dublin? And to be fair to John, he rushed from Cork all the way up to Déise, and then he got a guard escort from Déise into Croke Park. Got Tony up on the table, cracked his neck, cracked his back, and Tony ended up playing the match. And Tony was brilliant in the. When it was in the All-Ireland semi-final. But these things happen, lad. You can't, and even people say, oh, Jesus, the county board shouldn't allow this to happen or shouldn't allow it. Like, you can't, you have to allow for that, on certain occasions, something could go against the grain. And I think what most certainly what will happen now for probably the final is that, the county board definitely will have a backup plan if it was, what are the chances of it happening again? But most certainly, I think they will have a backup plan if something was to arise of that again. But you can't predict what's going to happen, lads. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. But it's fantastic for these group of lads, and look, it's fantastic for Clare as well. That both counties, it's a novel final. And it's in Thurles next week, and I would expect it'll probably, gather a crowd of 10,000-15,000 next week, and it's brilliant. I'm going to just say, Waterford, we're trying our best to do things right and to try and build it up again. And we even have the house draw coming up. I'm going to throw it in there, lads. Have an opportunity. Hey. Anyone who wants to pick up a ticket, and to be fair, any money that's raised through our house draw coming up is all being pumped into the underage development. So www.winahouse@waterford.com if you want to throw €100 away and enter a draw. I know, Eddie, you like a swim down around the Gillamines.
Yeah.
This house is only 10 minutes from the Gillamines, so who knows, Eddie?
That's the job.
You could win a house if you enter the draw.
A house by the sea.
Boys, I'll tell you something. I was down in Fungarvan recently enough, as I said to you, Mull, and I've been to Waterford. As regards a little family getaway, you won't get much better. And remember, with these tickets, you can have them, you can quarter them, you can go in with somebody else, you can syndicate it. So you have a good little mention there, Mull. Anyway, a good little plug.
Would you believe the Armagh football team? They were down 2 weeks ago. They spent the weekend down the Gold Coast. So.
Okay.
That's becoming another popular spot for training weekends as well as the Gold Coast. So yeah, I've seen an awful lot. I've seen McGeaney and a couple of them and Donny. They were in drinking coffee around Dungarvan. So yeah, it's becoming a popular spot as well. You
can't bait the sea, lads. With a squad or something like that, going in for a dip in the sea or whatever it is. Even like just messing around on the beach for half an hour. Like boys, just the way you become a child again when you're around water and you're splashing, and it's the stupid things are hilarious. Like, do you know what I mean? Or dunking a lad.
As long as the weather is good, mixer, yeah, that's grand. If you go down to Waterford a few days now, and by God, there's a breeze blowing in there, and it's worth freeze the ghoulies off you.
But Eddie, I know I went against you, but young Mullane, I felt disappointed from. I think he will become a right player. It probably didn't go his way Saturday night. And look, that can happen, lads. They're 15, 16, 17 years of age. And I'll be straight, I went to the Munster final between Cork and Waterford. Leaving Thurles that night, I couldn't see anyone beating that Cork minor team. So
funny, yeah.
Jesus, I thought Clare were excellent now, and I think it's going to be a great final. I just thought the Clare minor team, their appetite for work was just incredible. And I suppose, particularly from a Cork point of view, I suppose Joe Dean, John Flett, very, very good, and the two Cork wing backs, very, very good. Particularly young Brosnan. I remember texting Thomas Mull after the Munster final. He's going to have a bright future ahead of him. Brosnan for Cork, he's from Glen Rovers, yeah.
That minor final is particularly, obviously, I'd say particularly appropriate, just the fact that Clare and Waterford are out of senior, and it's kind of prolongs the interest in those two counties as well. Ned, we just briefly chat about the preliminary All-Ireland Quarterfinals last weekend. There's not that much to talk about. I was in Newbridge. In fairness, there was a good kind of a carnival atmosphere beforehand, and even they were given a standing ovation coming off the pitch after, which I thought was a real good touch when the whole crowd was in. But a 23 point beating for Laois and a 21 point beating for Kildare. The time has to be close to being up for these games. What do you reckon?
Well, yeah. Look, I mean, if you look through it was like we said, and I think we had a good chat about this maybe last year, if not the year before. We definitely got into it. I remember I got a decent reaction to it and saying, well, how can you say that when you were involved in a day that was, it's been the one day out of all the matches. All the rest have been turkey shoots. You're talking 15 plus points defeats. So the reality is, and we've kind of talked long and hard about this, but the reality is, when all of these guys should have been entitled to go off and be on the beer together for the week and drown their sorrows or have a great old session together and potentially probably book an old holiday and say, do you know what, lads, we're heading off on Friday or something like that. Their season is done. And you're being told, I know you have to go in there now. And particularly for the losing team, like, you're in no headspace whatsoever. And that's why the admiration I have for the losing McDonagh team to turn around and face into that, knowing that you're just going to be, you're basically being told, go in there and let the lads just slap the shit out of you for an hour, 70 minutes. You're looking at, if you're very, very lucky, you'll keep it to 10 points or thereabouts. That's the reality. And the numbers are there to back it up. So while this may have been well-intentioned at the time somebody conceived it, it's done and dusted, and it's time to stop it, because it serves no purpose whatsoever. It's like asking Leeds United, who won the championship this year, just no, lads, you can have one or two nights celebrating, but we want you to take on Paris Saint-Germain there next weekend in an old game. And it's an important game as well, because you could get it, or whatever it is. It's time to stop it now. And I'm aware of a democratic process. And I suppose the one thing, if I'm in Willie Maher's shoes right now, this is one thing I'd be looking at to stop.
Yeah.
Ed, can I ask you two questions? Right, the Munster round robin, the Leinster round robin, they're not going to go anywhere anytime soon. But what would you put in place instead of the All Ireland preliminary quarterfinals? And the other question I'm going to ask you, Paddy Purcell, you've managed Paddy Purcell. He's probably one of my favourite players in playing the game, and I just think what Paddy has done for Laois hurling, and what he's the game within the last 10 years has been incredible. And I just think if Paddy Purcell was playing for any other county, he would be, I'm not going to say downplay it, he would be a household name, and he will be on everyone's lips. And I just think what he's after giving to the game, what he's giving Laois hurling for the last 10 years is just remarkable. And what a player.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's everything. And I remember even, I think kind of talking to, I was talking to Brian Cody one time, the second year was involved, and he mentioned him. He said, he said, Paddy Purcell's a fine player. Do you know, because he was rangy, he said to get around the pitch, he'd finish. You take that year in 2021, was it Cheddar's first year to give Waterford a waffle rattle? He was central to that day in the heat wave in Nolan Park. He had a dinger of a day. But I'll say this, Muller, I said, Paddy Purcell and others, you telling me Marty Kavanagh, Tommy Doyle, there's lots of McDonagh players, Neil McManus, these guys, there's lots of lads that have been involved in that McDonagh, plenty of them. I've seen lots of quality, Shane Conway, you think of all these lads that it's a pity in a way, and lots of quality there, and they could grace the fields of any county jersey. They're more than capable of blending in, and that's the thing that you're saying, coming back to your first part of your question, how can you serve these lads? Look, there has to be tiers in competition, there has to be that, and you earn your right to get up along or whatever, and there's probably a bigger issue there with the Hurling Development Committee. Say, how can we consolidate the progress that has been made by Kildare now to keep them up, that there's not this yo-yo effect that we're seeing. But yeah, I just think, and again, you'd be thinking a lot about this, I think it's for us maybe, or a group of lads someday, to sit down, because we talk about the calendar year, say, right, put down, create a blueprint there of what it looks like. And for me, what it would look like with the round robin, whatever way that works out, that's here to stay. But it should be the possibility that maybe your four teams that make the provincial final bounce into quarterfinals, and then you have some kind of a playoff, a preliminary quarter final or whatever it is. I mean, to me, that's the ideal structure. Your All-Ireland final is a certain date. 2 weeks before that, All-Ireland semi-finals. 2 weeks before that, 4 quarter-finals, and maybe, or whatever. And obviously there's a time issue there. But something like that, where we're getting 4, I think, and I'm maybe being a bit greedy here, I know at another time we want more games, but I think, is that not a good structure to have, that you have 4 quarter-final teams? Just say, for example, Kilkenny, Galway, Limerick and Cork are in 4 separate quarterfinals or something like that, and then coming through, you have good matches. Then you could have it over a weekend. 2 matches Saturday, 2 matches Sunday, and you bounce on to 2 weekends time.
What are you saying, Ed? That 4 come out of each of the provinces?
I don't know what way. Yeah, there's some way. There's not enough jeopardy in the province. Then I suppose there has to be jeopardy. So it's finding the balance of working that. Because I know myself, if you know that, Ash, we can head into the Munster Championship. I don't know what way you do it. Maybe it's 2 groups mixed up, and then they bounce into maybe the top of each, or whatever way. I'm sure you could sit down and look at it. But I just think if you're wanting to fill as a filler to that preliminary is it's time for it to stop, and that's it. And I know.
What change would you make, Verney?
I wouldn't be I'd be getting rid of the preliminary All-Ireland quarterfinals, and I'd still have 3 coming out of Munster, and I'd still have 3 coming out of Leinster. But I'm not sure what would you have to do. You'd have the top 2. You'd have the top 2 going into the winners of Munster, winners of Leinster going into an All-Ireland semi-final, and 2 plays 3 in a quarter final, and then you go straight into the semi-finals. It'd only be 6 left. That's the way I do it.
Yeah.
I know you still have your. I know Waterford have struggled to get through, but even you had Stephen Bennett on Indo Sport with Joe last week saying that if they're good enough, they'll qualify.
Yeah.
I understand. Listen, I think you probably, Mull, in time you need to mix them all up. You need to play the provinces first, and then you need to mix it, and it needs to be Kilkenny, Tipp, Limerick, Galway, Dublin, and then another group of 5 similarly mixed up. I think that's the way you need to do it in time. But I don't see that happening in the not. It's going to be a few years before that happens.
Yeah.
But what's most laughable then, like, you're hearing some Galway people saying, "Oh Jesus, look at the route we face now to try and win it all Ireland." Tipperary, Cork, and potentially Limerick in the final. Jesus, welcome to our world. That's what we face to try and get out of Munster, let alone try and win an All Ireland.
Yeah.
So, like, it's. I don't know. I just think that the imbalance.
Yeah.
It's we need to improve, like, that imbalance, lads. Like, we're going to be back here again next year. We're going to be back here again in 24 months' time, and we're going to be asking the same questions again, like, you know.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, Mull. Just something I want to throw at you, Eddie, and I'm wondering, does this sound familiar? This is Brian Dowling after Kildare were beaten by Dublin at the weekend. He was asked whether he'd be there in 2026, and he was quite positive, but this is just what he said. He said, yeah, I have to sit down and talk to the county board and see what happens. There's a lot of work that has to be done, and it has to be fully backed, and everyone has to be on the same page. There's so much that has to go into this, and I'd say we have the smallest backroom team of any inter-county team, but brilliant lads, and the backroom team that I have are unbelievable in everything they've done. But we're trying to push everything, and we're trying to do so much. It's so hard, and you're trying to come up to the next level. You see before the match there, Dublin, with the amount of people that they have in the back room, there's 6 or 7 lads doing stats with laptops, that kind of stuff. We're worlds apart from that. But if we can get the support now, then Kildare can build on a fantastic year, and the lads can be so proud of what they achieved. Does that sound familiar, Ed?
Very familiar, yeah. Sounds like he an interview I made after we played. We were beaten narrowly by Clare in Nolan Park in 2020. Yeah, it is. It's worlds apart. Like, you had, Jesus, absolutely the most anorexic staff going. Like myself, Tommy Fitz, Niall Corcoran, Pat Delaney doing the kit, with John Keeley looking after slitters and stuff, and
don't forget Tra now, Eddie. Don't forget Tra.
I was there for a while, yeah. You had an S&C, one S&C. You had, I think year one, we had no, I don't think we had GPS. You're going looking at matches yourself and things like that. And I think I could stand to be corrected, but I think Cork won a minor a few years ago under Pat Ryan. And I remember seeing the backroom photograph, and it was 14 people I counted for a Cork minor team. So there is worlds apart, and that's where like your top managers don't need to have that heavy lift in there. Like Brian Dowling is, you have to go look at the matches. There's no hiding from that. You have to go look at them. But having this team there that can produce something, like I seen a document that an inter-county team was producing on opposition, and you're kind of going, wow, that's the level we're at here. Patterns of play, hot zones where their scores were coming from, hot zones where their puckouts were going. So, like, if you're Kildare and you can get a visual of that, like, that's a big thing. Like, one of the significant things was we were able to show the lads a heat chart of where the majority of the Dublin puckouts were going. And that was a great visual for players. Nothing too big to get into. Nice, small, clear visual. They're going here, they're going here, and they're going here. Right, let's build a plan around that. And that's the supports that you need if you're going to go up and compete with these guys, if Brian Dowling is going to compete with these lads. And that's where the real gains are, because the hurling people and the skills and that looks after itself to a degree, but it's the volume of work that you're having to do when you have a smaller team around you. That's where it's all consuming.
And you're not talking about having 25 lads.
No. This is not talking about, I remember I was at Wexford one day in 19. I counted 17 lads going around the pitch, placing cones and putting hurling balls. Again, this was the Davy circus. But somewhere in between is the balance. Like, you don't want lads for the sake of it. You don't need lads in your way, but you do need quality. You do need lads up in the stands, 3 or 4, and you need a head of stats that's he's seen something very quickly. He needs to feed that down to you down on the sideline, and you can maybe then make an adjustment on that. I think we heard, was there this guy that Limerick had up in the stand a few years ago for the 2023 All-Ireland? He was up the very top in the media section.
Shawnee O'Donnell, yeah.
And Shawnee O'Donnell was able to feed some information down. And more power to them for doing that. That's brilliant. But that's where the gulf is, and that's where, again, I'm giving poor Willie Maher a lot of things to consider this morning. It's that type of stuff is what will allow you to close the gap. That's all.
Yeah. Ed, I know you're under pressure for time there. Just quickly looking at the quarterfinals this weekend. What are you expecting from Galway, Tipp? What are you expecting from Galway? It's almost like when their backs are to the wall here, they'll produce something. But it's when their backs aren't to the wall, you don't know what you're going to get. And they seem to, the last 35, 40 years, they always seem to rise for Tipp. And whatever way Tipp play seems to almost be conducive to a good Galway performance as well. Yeah,
they do. And they've had some ding-dong battles. 2010, they nearly had him bet on us. We'd have fancied Galway in that 2010 All-Ireland. They nearly had him bet, and up came, I think, Lara with a great point, Brendan Maher. So there's epic battles. You go back to 17. I can still see the Joe Canning point on the sideline, and I think Brian Horgan. It's actually a great piece of footage, because you can see Brian Horgan, who was doing the hurls on that side for Tipp, and he's roaring at the Tipp lads to get to Joe Canning. Johnny Cohen has the ball, or Johnny Cohen gets the ball. Johnny Cohen has the ball. Passes it back, yeah. And you can see him going, okay, this is the lad that's not going to shoot. And you can see Joe Canning coming in behind him, and you can see Horgan. They've turned up some excellent matches, to be fair. Was it 16 on the way in? Didn't they meet again on the way into the All-Ireland in 16, where Corey Maher had that great hook on Cooney going in on the end line? So they bring the best out of each other. There's one thing motivates these Galway boys, it's the size of the Tipp jersey. But the problem is, right here, right now, Tipp are coming in there nicely primed. They're in a good place. I think Liam Cahill would have loved to have been in a Munster final, but I think if he looks at it now, he go, I know, I'm happy with where I am right now. If they can get the business done this weekend against Galway, I think there's one crowd the Rebels may not like to see coming over the horizon. And if there's one crowd that Liam Cahill would love another bite off of, it's the Rebels in an All-Ireland semi-final. But it's the big question is, I suppose, is what Galway pitches up. And I asked the same question going into the Leinster final. I wanted to see a Galway team take off the handbrake and let fly, and they didn't. They were just poor. So this is the danger for Tipp. Tipp can only prepare as best they can and be ready for the war. They will expect a war, but the question is, what are they going to get off Galway? Because looking at that Galway team at the moment, I haven't seen that edgy, sparky performance that I think Galway. It's Galway. That's how Galway play their best hurling. And the problem is, I suppose, the old lads are just a fraction old, and maybe the younger lads are not ready yet. I don't know, but there's it's a little bit of a shot into the dark. But right now, if you're putting a bet on it, I think you'd find it very hard to bet against Tipperary. You're betting on history then, and you don't know. So we don't know, but I haven't seen any evidence that we're going to get a big Galway performance, and that's what has me kind of, I suppose, if you're Tipp, you're a fraction nervous because the history is there. Yeah.
Mull, it's a very frustrating thing when you don't know what type of a team is going to show up. The pressure, it's funny, the pressure isn't really on them this weekend, because in one sense it is, because they have to deliver a performance or the championship is over. But the pressure is almost on Tipp a bit this weekend. Like, can Galway spark something this weekend and cause a little bit, what would be a minor surprise? Because Tipp are kind of the team that a lot of people think are coming now and could potentially end up in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah, I believe what will help Liam Cahill the weekend is the fact that Galway, overturned Tipp 2 years ago in a quarter final. I think the fact that it was at the COVID quarter final as well, the exact same venue. Galway managed to turn over Tipperary. Was a Liam Sheedy managed team back then as well. But to answer your question, I think what Galway may have to do the weekend is probably, we questioned, how they set up the last day in trying to contain Kilkenny, and I think probably the Galway management will probably look to kind of redeem themselves as well off the back of how they set the team up the last day out. It'll be interesting who will be at number 6. Will they persist with Gavin Lee at number 6? You're definitely thinking midfield. They're probably going to have a look at midfield. Could they push Gavin Lee into midfield? Probably put Pádraig Mannion centre back. Could they throw something different at number 11? Could they throw maybe Kevin Cooney, a Brian Kincannon out at number 11, maybe to kind of do something similar the way Tipperary have done with Jake Morris? They're definitely going to have to throw someone, inside. Will they go back and probably put Carl Mannion inside, or will they put Whelan back inside? But a lot will hinge on the naming of the Galway team and the structure of the Galway team. But as Eddie touched on, we've seen it. Galway can be hot and cold, but they've been consistent in one thing the last couple of years, and they've been consistent in giving good performances against Tipperary. And I think it's Tipperary haven't beaten them since. Am I right in saying 2016 that All-Ireland semi-final in 2016 was the last time Tipperary beat Galway
you could be right
in a championship match? So they have a good record against Tipperary, and I think they will bring it the weekend. And you even go back to 2022 under Henry's first year. Remember they were abysmal in that Leinster final. I think they were well beaten in that Leinster final, and they were coming up against Cork in Thurles, and everyone were tipping Cork, and they overturned Cork that day. So yeah, I'm definitely expecting that they will show up the weekend, and they will give a performance. Whether it's a performance that's going to be good enough to overcome this Tipperary team, who, let's be honest about it, are moving in the right direction, and the whole county as a whole, they're on the crest of a wave off the back of that underage success.
Yeah, Owen Connolly didn't play last weekend, nor did Jake Morris, but by all accounts, I think Connolly's was probably just a couple of training sessions away from playing. He should be good to go this weekend, and Jake Morris the same, who's in the form of his life. I don't know if you saw the GAA put out a little crossbar challenge video there last week of all the players that were at the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship launch, and he gets 2 balls and rattles the 2 of them off the crossbar. He's so good, and I was just thinking as well, every time he gets a ball, you think he's going to score. He doesn't miss. Just in the other semi-final, or in the other quarter-final, Mull, Dublin and Limerick, it's in Croke Park before the preliminary All-Ireland football quarter-final, Dublin and Cork, and I think Limerick, while there's a lot of travel involved, and Limerick are playing the next day in the Tailteann Cup in Dublin as well, I think Limerick would be delighted to get a game in Croke Park, and get a game in Croke Park for under the belt of Adam English, the likes of Shane O'Brien, etc. A lot of their new players, Aidan O'Connor as well. It's harder to see a surprise in this game, it's fair to say.
No, but no, look, I know probably Kildare were coming off the back of a 6-day turnaround, but we're only seeing the highlights of the Dublin Kildare match. But some of the Dublin scores, Dublin look kind of refreshed. I think the 3-week break, can be to the detriment of some teams, but it can help other teams. And I think the 3-week break came at a key time for Dublin, particularly when you're using probably the same 19, 20 players as they did throughout the course of the league and the championship. And you even seen that in the performance against Galway. It was probably energyless. It was, I won't say it was bereft of ideas, but there wasn't the same kind of enthusiasm that we seen last Saturday against Kildare. And I think, they brought an awful lot more energy to the table last Saturday. And I think they're coming into this perfect Dublin. You ask the question, where would Dublin be better served playing Limerick? Would he be better off served playing them in Thurles or playing them in Croke Park? And I think the wide open spaces, this Dublin team, they're well able to move. They can mix it any way you want. They can go long, they can go short, they can play it through the lines. And I actually think Croke Park might suit Dublin. And you'd be hoping that the Dublin football supporters will get in early and get behind the team. But I think it's perfect for both Dublin or Limerick. Whoever is to prevail in that match, they've 73, 74 minutes into the legs in Croke Park, and it will set them up beautifully going into an All-Ireland semi-final. And it will be very interesting. We've seen time and time again Limerick. They go on to another level when they reach Croke Park, and it'll be interesting this year. Will that be the case as well?
Yeah.
But I would firmly believe that. I think Dublin. I think they'll go toe to toe with Limerick for large parts of the match, and I think they'll compete with them. But I just think coming down the home straight, particularly that third quarter, I think when you hit the 50, 55-minute mark, I think Limerick will start to pull away, and I would be expecting Limerick to win by possibly a 7 or 8 point margin.
I'd expect something similar as well. The countdown is all month. There's only 5 games left in the championship. Let's hope we've 2 good ones this weekend and 2 cracking semi-finals to come, and then hopefully a brilliant final as well. But Mullane, Ned, great to have the two of you back together. Thanks a million, boys. We'll chat soon.